Hey there, Jordan Chariton, live Status Coup. It is Tuesday, August the 9th, the year 2022. Hope everybody's having a good day and staying safe in these trying times. I hope your house was not raided by the FBI or any other agency for that matter. Please do me the kindness of smashing the like button. It's a thumbs up button right under the live stream. The more people that press the like button, the more people that will see this very live stream. Also share the live stream. Sharing is caring. And we appreciate your super chats, all that good stuff. If you missed it, I was live on Sunday covering a Starbucks workers strike in New Jersey. So that video is up on the channel. And of course, all of my reporting from our most recent trip in Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia is up on the channel. Yesterday, we did our first ever call-in session here on the channel. So we had live callers on the channel, quite eventful, and we're going to do it again today. So to the, I do invite the haters, but we're going to have a quicker trigger finger here if people get a little too out of line. Because a couple folks yesterday were, I'm happy to hear a differing view, but Jesus, people need to lighten up. No yelling, no screaming, no threats. This is a family program. Joining me now, Steve Grumbine of Real Progressives. How you doing, Steve?
Hatless in Harrisburg.
Awesome. So let me just start with the obvious feeling here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Ladies and gentlemen.
So, trying to lighten up the party here. Listen, I don't think we've ever done really a full stream on Trump. We're definitely not going to talk about Trump this whole stream, but can't ignore it. I think there's also a connection when you see the MAGA reaction to things you and I have spoken about a lot, which is if you don't offer people hope, jobs, anything, they get sucked into this. Because the right wing is in full meltdown, talks of a civil war, all that stuff. So we'll get into it. But first, let's just show you, Steve. I don't know. I don't know if you're on a full stomach. I don't know, if you're feeling healthy. Colin put together kind of the best of the right wing reaction to this. Some of it's comical, some of it's scary. But the right wing is declaring war because their leader has been raided by the FBI. Let's take a look at the best of.
Tomorrow is the day when you're going to want to buy the physical copy of the newspaper. You're going to want to buy it and fold it carefully, maybe put it in a little archival paper or parchment if you don't have that. Just put it away someday.
Federal Bureaucrats Incorporated, what is happening there? So politicized, so dangerous. Working for Merrick Garland? Did you do this because Merrick Garland wants it? Merrick Garland, meanwhile, Hunter Biden. Hunter, has his house been raided?
As a federal prosecutor, there are many times where I've worked with law enforcement to do search warrants. I don't believe anybody in Mar-a-Lago was going to start, flushing fentanyl down the toilet.
People are angry. We're seeing a lot of people already holding rallies down at Mar-a-Lago. People across the country are calling their members of Congress. They are outraged. And again, these are people that had moved on past Trump. But they're asking the question, if this can happen to the former president, then it could happen to me.
Think about when we use these kinds of search warrants, we're afraid that those in the residence or in the location are going to destroy as evidence.
Stan, your quick emotional reaction. I think everyone's a little emotional here about this raid.
Yeah, you think? This is some third world bullshit right here. Let me say it again, third world bullshit. Every word of that. I don't care that it's cable news. I was a federal agent. I raised my right hand. We don't live in Cuba. We don't live under Kim Jong-un. We live in a constitutional republic, a representative democracy.
And I think this is a wake-up call for those in Congress to be able to use the tools at their disposal to defund the FBI, to ask the right questions, and to prepare for a church-style commission next year, if given a Republican majority, to dismantle the FBI into 1,000 bits.
Republican gets in, investigate everybody, raid
everybody. Use all of it. I don't care if we become Nicaragua at this point. You've already rung the bell. You can't unring it, Buttercup.
It's time to hold everyone accountable. The military leadership, the civilian leadership, the civil service, those in Congress who've abused their power, all of them have to be held accountable. All of them. It can't be this nice guy routine.
You know, thank God it's Donald Trump, quite frankly, because nobody else could withstand this kind of pressure. Both the pressure during the campaign, during the presidency, the fake impeachments, the Russia hoax, January 6th investigations, Soviet-style investigations, and now this.
This is a criminal. The FBI and the DOJ are essentially lawless criminal organizations.
That's key. Let's start over there, because you're laying out a lot of key things second by second. Exactly. How do we know 100 agents in there with their long history of planning things didn't plant something classified?
You're absolutely right.
State legislatures, he goes after states he disagrees with their abortion positions. He doesn't do a damn thing to protect the border, which is compelled by the Constitution. Nothing. So let's be clear. Newt is right. They're all right. This is the worst attack on this republic in modern history.
And I'm going to tell you something. I'm not into conspiracies. I'm not into anti-government rhetoric. This is the first time in my lifetime that I would say I am deathly afraid for Donald Trump. I would not put assassination behind these people.
I mean, if this can happen to a former president of the United States, and they've just hired through this monster spending bill 87,000 IRS agents.
We're good. Boy, assassination, attacks on the Republic, Nicaragua already, investigate everybody. Now, I honestly would love to get rid of the FBI, but for different reasons than these right-wingers would love to get rid of the FBI. I give you what they did to Martin Luther King, the Black Panthers, can I say COINTELPRO here on YouTube? I could go on and on. The DOJ, I mean, I don't know about getting rid of the Department of Justice, but maybe actually having the same standards for wealthy fuckers that you do for black and brown and white, poor white people. But great job, by the way, Colin. That was really entertaining. But I have to say, Steve, I don't particularly think they'd be reacting this way if it was Hunter Biden that they were raiding. I don't think they'd be reacting if it was, I don't know, Pelosi, insider trading, and you needed to search some boxes. Seems to be that this is a partisan reaction. And more importantly, I'm not a lawyer. You're not a lawyer. However, I really, really find it very, very highly unlikely that they sent 100 agents in there if it was exclusively about mishandling classified documents. I think there's reason to believe this is not just about classified documents. I think there's reason to believe this is about other things. Since it's the former president, you would probably have to get head of the FBI's okay, attorney general's okay, obviously a judge, and you'd have to show evidence that potentially crimes have been committed. And then what type of crimes? If it's just mishandling classified documents, technically that's a crime, but they let Hillary off. So do we really think they'd be doing this commando style over mishandling classified documents? I don't know what you think, but we're already hearing in 4chan and some of the darker corners of the internet talk of civil war. Experts that look into white supremacy and extremist violence are saying the kind of chat they're hearing now is what they heard right before January 6th. So I'm having fun with the sirens, but it's also pretty serious.
Yeah, I think it's very serious. I think it's very serious for reasons that probably most of our audience considers in the back of their head. And I think we know tit for tat. I mean, if you go to high school, your middle school even, and you trip somebody in the hallway, they fall down, they drop their books. The next day, they're going to be looking for you in the bathroom. And that's when they punch you with their friends. And then after that, you get your friends and the same thing happens. And it keeps going back and forth. We're in the middle of an existential climate crisis right now. They did a half measure on this, Inflation Reduction Act kind of nonsense. But here we are right now. I don't know shit. They didn't announce anything. All we know is that Donald Trump has been raided. And so the right wing has got the narrative. And this is not a matter of whether it makes logical sense to people with a brain. This is more a matter of what it makes sense to the people that listen to that kind of shit. And as bad as the Democrats are, and they're awful, folks, let's just be clear. These folks are really serious. They're not screwing around. As much as I want to laugh about this, and I do want to laugh about it, my first instinct is to laugh violently at, here we go again. But they're not joking. And I think that if anybody were to take just a moment and get out of the standard narrative formation and think to themselves, quite honestly, people are desperate. This world that we're living, Jordan has been covering the economic Hunger Games and all the other insanity out there in these local communities, in these blue areas, blue collar areas. People are at their wits' end, regardless of whether it's Democrat or Republican. They have had it up to their ears. So the country is already a smoldering cauldron of anger and rage and resentment. They're literally raising interest rates up. They're literally trying to lay people off. And you've got people that are desperate. So when you see something like this, this is the kind of spark that takes that powder keg and sets it ablaze. I don't know what that looks like in the end. I know for a fact, though, that it's real. I would take very, very little comfort in believing that we have anything to protect us. Right, wrong, or different. Forget whether you're a Democrat or Republican. It's not about that right now. It's not even about Trump. Fuck Trump. It's really about the people that are already radicalized, that are just out of their mind with poverty, out of their mind with fear, out of their mind with rage. Maybe they've been warped by all this stop the steal crap, whatever. The bottom line is the average American citizen has been hearing lots and lots and lots of violent propaganda from a lot of places. In particular, even in the state of Pennsylvania, you got guys like Mastriano running, who are literally running about making those woke people out there go away. Okay. So if you think about it from that standpoint, we've gone from a whole new level of politicians fighting each other to politicians fighting their supporters to now supporters fighting each other. It's not a far reach to think this could become something far worse than any of us are thinking about. So that's my take on it.
And folks, remember, smash the like button. It's right under the video. Thumbs up makes a big difference. Another reminder, in about 15 minutes, we're going to start taking your calls, because Steve and I were never attractive enough. We both have faces for radio. Me more than Steve. He's a handsome fella. So we're going to be taking your calls. As a reminder, we do it through the Call-In app. So download Call-In if you haven't already, Callin. Once you do that, follow us, Status Coup, on Call-In, and then you just do it like a normal call-in show. So we'll be taking your calls on this, other things too. Let's not fight each other. If you have a different take, just talk civilly, okay? It's tough times. We don't need the battle royale. But, you know, one thing I find particularly interesting about this, Steve, I kind of feel torn, because there's a lot of whataboutism out there. Listen, I didn't really cover Hillary Clinton and the emails because I thought that was like on the list of Hillary Clinton's potential crimes, pretty low. I barely covered it. I covered her corruption. I didn't cover the emails and all that. But on one end, we saw Hillary Clinton got off. We've seen George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Bush's lackeys that lied us into wars and committed war crimes. No DOJ persecution of them. Obviously, the financial crash, which affected you, a lot of our audience. I mean, nobody. Obama gave them more power, the bankers. Obviously, Trump didn't go after anyone. No oil executives have ever had, DOJ investigations for lying about leaks, for lying about natural gas explosions. So on one end, I'm happy if they're going after Trump because he has committed crimes. I mean, anyone that's lived in New York knows the history of Trump and his connections with money laundering through the mob. Everyone that was trying to create the Russian boogeyman and he worked with Russia, it wasn't that he worked with Russia. It's that his biggest real estate customer is Russian oligarchs. And he forever in New York in the 80s, 90s, his father too, was money laundering with some bad people, including Russians. I mean, this was a known thing, but the media didn't want to cover that. They wanted to create a Cold War thriller instead. So I do think if Trump has committed crimes, and again, I find it for the FBI, with the blessing of the DOJ, to raid the former president's home, that's not like, oh, we're just trying to get our boxes of classified information back. you have to have evidence. You would think that other crimes have been committed other than the presidential mishandling classified information. So on one end, he should be prosecuted if he's committed crimes. But on the other end, it's kind of hollow because all these people, who are, Rachel Maddow was giddy over there, and the resistance is loving it, and I'm loving it too. And I'm certainly no resistance, but they were crickets about the bankers. They're crickets about the fossil fuckers. They're crickets about Joe Manchin's daughter, who jacked up the price of EpiPens as the CEO of a big pharmaceutical company. DOJ didn't go after her. I mean, the big pharma bro, Martin Scarelli, he was in jail for 5 minutes. He's out already after he jacked up the price of life-saving drugs. So on one hand, I'm happy about it. I want them to go after it. We haven't even gotten to Epstein killed himself. All his, cohorts, Bill Clinton, all these other people that were involved with this. So I don't know about your thoughts. On one end, I'm happy that they're going after Trump. He probably did commit crimes. They probably have evidence of it, but they're never going to go after the people I just listed.
Just remember that unless your goals are to elect your way to a Green New Deal and vote your way to a Green New Deal and vote your way to canceling student debt and vote your way to a job guarantee and vote your way to universal basic services and things like that, you're probably out in the cold right now, because already that all those votes did was just nothing. I mean, you really haven't gotten any of the things that you need or want out of your government. So as I'm looking at this, I'm saying to myself, we keep falling into these situations where we have no advocacy. To celebrate just going after the other guy doesn't give us anything. But it does create a new war now that we all will have to have our ears open, our ears peeled back. We are going to literally have to be all over this because honestly, I think we have hit a point in time where we are not able to just pretend that everything's okay. We can't just go back to sleep. Things have gotten so bad for regular people now that going after Trump, to me, is a distraction to hide away the fact that they're raising interest rates, that they are literally trying to stifle pay because workers have too much strength, and they're trying to once again dissuade us from caring about our own personal lives, instead have to focus now on Trump. So should we go after that stuff? Absolutely. But read the room. We're at a point now where 1 degree more on the stove is going to cause the water to boil over. And, I'm here to tell you that I just don't care that much about Donald Trump at this point. I wish they would stop trying to make him a martyr so that people didn't have a martyr to freaking die on the cross for, so to speak. And that is exactly what right-wingers are born and bred to do, is die on the cross for some martyr. And he'll be their new JC. Now, it doesn't need to be 50%. It only needs to be 3% or more to really, really cause a major problem. Do your research. It is a scary, scary thing. So to me, I take no joy in this whatsoever. I hate Donald Trump. He's a piece of shit. But then again, I hate every one of them. There's no one up there that I go, oh, aren't they good? I look at them all and I say, you have done nothing for me or my family. I can't stand any of you. So Donald Trump, as much as I can't stand him, all I care about is that the man not be back in office. I don't want to see him back in office, but who knows? His the next guy up, man. That next guy up mentality. Can you imagine how much crazier the next batch of people are that are starting to stop the steal campaigns around the country? I'm telling you right now, the idea of just going after Trump is literally not getting us anywhere. It's just not. I see no end game here that makes sense. And I can't stand the guy. If all things were equal, every one of these sons of bitches should be in jail. But the fact is that this is selective. None of the others did it. I don't know what they went after him for. So I kind of reserve some of my judgment for seeing what the actual paperwork says, that they reason why they invaded his property. Until then, though, all I say is, I saw the videos of all the people you've interviewed, Jordan, and all those people are suffering, homeless, many of them, people without their children. That's what I care about. And to go after Donald Trump, in my opinion, is disrespecting those people when their needs are right here, right now. Donald Trump is still about making Hillary a presidential person or some bullshit to cover her up. I really think that this fetish with Trump hasn't served us in any way that it should have served us. I think there's a total fail, to be honest with you.
So I agree and disagree. Number one, I don't really think the stuff I did on the road and the stuff we cover here anyway, I don't think the media is not going to cover that, whether they're focusing on Trump or not focusing on Trump. So to me, that's separate. I also think, to me, the focus on Trump and January 6th, I don't think it should be ignored. I mean, people could say what they want. I mean, they were trying to stop the results of an election that would be defined as a coup. You're trying to overturn the government and keep the loser in. That's what they do in other countries. We have helped prop up coups and engineer coups. I know some viewers and a lot of the internet audience these days can't have two thoughts at once. Like, you could be against January 6th, but also criticize America's hypocrisy. I practice something called nuance. But I actually think it does matter, not in the way of like, let's just focus on Donald Trump, but I think it matters because, again, well, first, Colin, you cut this. Let's play some of the legal response, because I think everybody is making assumptions right now. And you pointed out, Colin, I don't know if you have it, Trump could very easily show the search warrant.
Absolutely.
Trump could very easily show the search warrant, because on the search warrant, it will say the crimes. Here we go. Just another reminder, Trump has a copy of the warrant, which will include what they search for and what crimes they believe were broken. He could release it whenever he wants. So to me, we're assuming, not us, but the assumption is this is over classified material. But what if the nature of that classified material that they're trying to get back, it's because they have evidence he committed crimes in office linked to policy decisions he was pushing and business he was also conducting in his real estate and his family business. So we don't know what it's about. Could be January 6th, could be something completely unrelated, could be a mishmash of a couple different things. We know Jared Kushner made a whole lot of money off of Saudi Arabia while in office. We don't know what Trump knew about it, what's in those documents that they got. So to me, you don't have to have Trump derangement syndrome to, if he was benefiting or enriching himself while president, or policy matters were linked with business or profiting in any way, he should be prosecuted. Because if you don't prosecute him for that, it's the same principle that I always go with Flint. If no one is held accountable for poisoning a city and then leaving them to die and covering it up, that's the playbook for any other governor or mayor or city council to do the same thing. So until we know, and the Department of Justice is not going to talk, but it's very likely that to do this, they're probably closer to the end of their investigation than the beginning. But another thing is the danger of this. I think there needs to be a balance between caring about this and being like, if the last president committed crimes, we should care about it. It should be covered. He should be prosecuted. And we need to be careful with this term democracy. And like, democracy, because that's what the resistance schools, the people who lied us into war in Iraq, who now have permanent residence at MSNBC, they're crowing about democracy. We don't have a democracy. We have the idea and the marketing of a democracy, but a democracy would indicate the person with the most votes wins. A democracy would indicate that public policy is at least somewhat linked to popular sentiment and need of the people. That's what democracies are supposed to be about. Representative democracy would be you're representing the will of your constituents. In 2014, I think it was Stanford did a study, calling us an oligarchy, not a democracy. So that's, to me, the dangers where you let the narrative get out of control that, if we don't put Trump behind bars and his allies behind bars and stop this, then we're not going to have a democracy left. That's wealthy, out of touch cable news pundits talking about democracy. We don't have a democracy. And we also don't have a party that cares about what I just described. Democracy for working class people. Your thoughts?
You know, I don't want it to come off that I don't care about going after bad guys, right? Anybody that commits these kinds of crimes should be gone after, okay? But this is the problem we have right now. You have a population that is going to give you its popular opinion, no matter how uninformed it is. And so when you realize the optics of this look incredibly political, right, wrong, or indifferent, okay? Right, wrong, or indifferent, it gives enough air cover. And just hypothetically imagine being an adulterer. You go out, you cheat on your wife, you come home, she catches you, she scolds you, whatnot. And then 15 minutes later, okay, she goes and does something. And then you're like, oh, you are a cheater. And then all of a sudden, it's like you just lack that credibility for being the one to go after the cheater. And in this case, there's been so much trash, so much garbage, going back to Assange's data dumps and everything else, you know, Snowden, on and on and on. These people, it's like two really, really bad people trying to pretend like either one of them is the better person. And that's all people see. It doesn't matter what Trump did, actually, in many cases, for the people that are going to be offended and ready to take action on behalf of Donald Trump. This is not what I want. I'm not talking about what I want. What I want is to get the motherfucker off the streets and put him in jail, whatever, for things had nothing to do with presidential stuff even before that. I mean, the man's a criminal, okay? But that said, this right here smacks of political bullshit. It does not feel good. You know what I mean? It doesn't have that same, like if we would have gone after Bush for weapons of mass destruction, if we would have gone after Obama for the payola that happened during the great financial crash, when all the CEOs of Fannie Mae and Freddie and freaking Citi and all the rest of it, if anybody got prosecuted, if anybody was literally tackled, it would be different. But it's not. It's like more a part of what appears, right, wrong, or indifferent, to the remainder of that Trump derangement syndrome. And I think that it's going to have major blowback. And I'm not just talking about politically. I'm talking about in your communities. That's the part that bothers me. I'm less worried about the politics and far more worried about what happens at the baseball practice, at the school board meeting, at the local voting booth. I mean, I'm talking about at the gas pump even. I'm talking about at the schools, anywhere. I'm talking about real world, in your face, people against people that are neighbors. And this is what I'm seeing more and more leading up to this point.
Well, I want to show
now,
you. I want to show you this because, I mean, we played the right wing, reaction.
Sure.
But, I mean, the chatter on 4chan, on message boards, on all this, I mean, they're talking get locked and loaded, civil war. Colin, if we have that media article, NBC's Ben Collins sounds alarmed. So this is a guy, reporter for NBC, who covers, right-wing extremism, white supremacy, that kind of thing. So I'll just wait till Colin has it up. So he's basically looking at the message boards, and I mean, it ain't pretty. This is on, what is this? The Donald, which is a popular Trump message board. Lock and load. Are we not in a cold war at this point? Cold civil war at this point? They will cry out in authentic pain soon. Then you have Don Jr., we know you lurk, cross the Rubicon. Summertime was made for killing fields. Stephen Crowder, tomorrow is war, sleep well. I mean, these are just some of them. There's people, I mean, Alex Jones and Steve Bannon are basically calling for war at this point. And, you could say what you want. You could say, oh, the Buffalo shooter, you can't blame Tucker Carlson because the Buffalo shooter's, manifesto sounded no different than a Trump monologue. Yeah, you don't blame Tucker Carlson for the shooter pulling the gun, making the drive, but it should be covered that the number one TV news star, that his rantings on the Great Replacement sound identical to this white supremacist. So we don't know what this talk, like I think is what the point you're trying to make, is going to egg on, because a lot of these people are young men, kind of without direction. We could talk about the economic desperation. We could talk about the hopelessness, isolated from society, whatever. But, you know, Andrew Yang tweeted, you know, something like this. Do I think don't go after Trump if you have proof he committed crimes because it might create a civil war? No, you go after him, period. But we shouldn't erase that this could lead to, you know, violence.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm personally terrified because I know that the left's pathway to getting something done has to lie beyond the electoral process. The things that matter to me are that you can have health care. The things that matter to me are that you're not strapped with huge amounts of IRS debt to your back, or that you're not strapped with a freaking medical bills that you can't get out from under. That you have to make horrible decisions with your family because you can't afford your life. These are the things that matter to me. And, you know, ultimately, if we don't have some sort of, I don't even know what the right word for it is, some sort of pulse, you know, to awareness of impacts, you know, of when you hit a domino, what's going to happen? When you throw a stone in a lake, what's going to happen? And, you know, I'm not scared in the sense of, oh my God, I'm so scared. I just happen to know that most of those people, they're gun owners. They are not looking at us like we're the good guys. In fact, let me just say this. Most of you all know I used to be a right winger. And many years ago.
Used to be a Bushy.
Used to be. That's right. So I speak fluent asshole, right? And when I think about this, my former best man from my first marriage, first of, you know, couple here. Okay. But his wife just picked up and left to go to a red state down in Tennessee because didn't want to be in New York anymore because it's too woke. And so literally like that, just picked up and left like that. People are serious. I know that it's hard for folks to understand this. They're really, really serious about this thing. This disconnect, this mental blockage is real to them. This is not like some contrived thing. And talking to individual, I stayed on the phone with this guy the other night for like 2 hours trying to make sure he was even okay because I was worried. But this is it, man. They don't want to be asked about vaccines. They don't want to be asked about guns. They don't want to be asked about, you know, why they support Donald Trump. They don't want to, they literally want what they want. And this right here plays right into that very, very resolute right-wing retrenchment that has occurred. And it's growing because, see, the problem is the Democrats continue to put on this buffoon show up there. And so these young people see somebody, right, wrong, or indifferent, idiotic, moronic, bigoted, racist, liar, con man, whatever. They see him up there, okay, being serious, while they see the jokes on the left, the Democratic Party looking about like a bunch of bougie little, you know, limousine liberals. And they're like, the hell with that. They find more to relate to, sadly, with Donald Trump and the MAGA gang than they do with the other side. Let's be real with what's happening here. My struggle is that we have all the right answers. We want people to have good lives. We want them to not struggle for health care. We want to fix the environment. We want to make everyone have a chance at a good life. Our messages should be resounding with everyone, but it's not, because we're being mocked and aped by Joe Biden, who is not representative of any of my values. None of them.
I want to sorry to interrupt, but I just want to tell the audience we just launched the call-in. So how it's working is you got to go to Callin, CALLIN, which is a live podcasting app. You could call in there and you will be piped into the YouTube show. So for the folks on Callin right now, we're live on YouTube. Press that button to call in and we'll take your calls, which will go through on our YouTube channel. We're talking Trump. We also want to talk about, frankly, Biden got a gift with this. Biden got a gift with this because it takes the attention off of this crumb cake climate deal that, you know, they're crowing about, this massive giveaway to the fossil fuckers, giveaway to private equity, neoliberal tax incentives, mass, you know, sold to us as historic action on climate. So we'll take your calls now. So get over. Colin just put the link in the super chat. Click on the call-in link. And once you get into the call-in room, you could call in there and we'll take your calls. Yesterday, we got a lot of great calls. Some of them were a little much. So if you have a different take, we invite you, but no screaming or ranting. Colin, if you could put the call-in link in the super chat. So, what I also think, and by the way, just to give an update, because I just saw this from the Washington Post, apparently Trump gave over 15 boxes earlier this year, but the federal officials believed he still had more that he wasn't handing over. So that's what was responsible for this raid. The fact that they had reason to believe that he was not giving over everything, which tells me they have a mole down there, or they have witnesses down there that was feeding information to the FBI. So that's definitely interesting. So Steve, before we take the first caller, want your thoughts. We were hearing, the job numbers were wonderful Friday, and Biden with his, historic economic recovery jazz. Then you had the Inflation Reduction Act, which, is just President Manchin wanted that title. My take on this has been, you can't really respond to your house on fire with the fire department coming with super soakers. To me, that's what this is. I think tax incentives and grants for electric vehicles and solar panels would have been nice 10 years ago. I don't think it meets the crisis we're in now. To the people who say, well, Jordan, would you prefer they do nothing? I would have preferred Bernie and the progressives blocked it and made a point, because I don't think this does enough, to be honest with you. And I don't think this meets the crisis when you're looking at London is on fire, flooding in the Midwest, which has continued year after year. It's hotter just wherever you are this summer. What were your thoughts on it?
I think the issue here for me, Jordan, is that whenever we talk about inflation, we don't actually talk about the causes of inflation. Whenever we talk about, climate crisis, we sort of touch around the rim about it. We talk about fossil fuels and ending fossil fuel consumption. Whenever we talk about, medical and stuff like that, we talk about maybe making one little thing here or one little thing there cheaper or something like that. It's always piecemeal. To your point, when your house is on fire, you don't bring a super soaker out there. All right. But here's the problem. If you're going to solve a supply chain inflation problem, you fix the supply chain. If you're going to fix a lack of production problem, we don't have enough supply to meet demand, you fix the supply problem. If you're going to fix a problem where you've got fuel outrageous, then you put a cap on fuel prices, or you prevent your domestic producers from exporting your oil. But none of these logical things that you do step by step. What is the problem we're solving? Let's fix the problem. They don't do that. So what do? Most people, and we talked about this offline, but I'll just put it out there. Most people just think it's okay to let's go taxing corporations. But anybody with a high school education when it comes to basic business accounting knows that when a business creates their profit motive, when they create their price points, they consider taxes, they consider amortization, they consider depreciation, they consider all sorts of stuff. Every dollar that is put on a corporation for tax will be seen as a dollar or an increase in the cost of goods sold. Okay. So these taxes that you're putting on the corporation aren't doing what we think they're doing. If you really want to get at corporations, tax the C-suite, literally tax their bonus packages, tax anything that allows them to walk away with stock buybacks and things like that. But don't tax corporations, even though it feels good, even though in your mind you say it's got to be the right answer. Again, basic business management. A cost increase includes a price increase. It's basic 101 business. So tax the C-suite, tax the behaviors, tax the bads, not the goods. If there are behaviors that you want to cease, tax those. But the problem is they put this out there like they're clawing back this money, to pay for the Inflation Reduction Act. They're paying for it with tax increases. It's not happening. That's not how it works. And they're treating you all like a bunch of idiots. They're treating you like you don't know any better, like you're stupid enough to believe that the federal government taxes so that it can afford to pay for things. The federal government creates the money out of thin air. So it doesn't need the tax to actually pay for anything, right? What it needs a tax for is so that you need its currency so that it can provision itself by using dollars. If there's no tax, there's no incentive, there's no reason to keep the dollars. They become worthless tokens. It's the tax that drives the need for the currency. So this whole concept is FUBAR. I really, and I think the worst part about this bill beyond anything is the fact that just like when they legalized marijuana, medical marijuana at the state level, that the states actually gave preferential treatment to the rich to be the ones that profit off the sale of marijuana, never mind the people that are in jail and the black and brown people that have been specifically racially profiled and targeted. They didn't get it. So once again, the coal mining industry and the fossil fuel industry gets first dibs at renewables. They get to stay in the catbird seat no matter how much damage they've done to the environment. So to me, this whole bill is terrible, but a lot of people, mostly Democrats, let's be fair, are going to celebrate this. I even see people that I think should know better out there celebrating jolting Joe Biden, putting this garbage out there. And I don't see any advantage here. Because if you're in a river, okay, and the water's over your head and your leg gets stuck underneath a log that's in the river as you're floating down and you can't get your leg stuck, it doesn't matter if they lower that water 1 inch. If they don't lower that water down below your nose line, you're going to drown. So all this crap about, hey, we did it. We let's celebrate. It's ridiculous. It's a big crock of shit. And that's where the focus needs to be. And unfortunately, chasing after Donald Trump's tax returns. Anyway, that's
all right.
That's it.
Eve, let's take the first caller. Not a chance I'm having this guy back on. Never fall. You need to relax a little bit. Chris, you're up next.
Hello?
Hey there.
Hello?
Yeah, we hear you.
There we go. Sorry, hold on, let me unmute. Yeah, so hold on. Okay, sorry, I was having it on call in too. I'm hearing a little bit of an echo.
You hear us?
Else. Yeah, I hear you, but you're on a little bit of an echo. I hear a little back. Anyway, so something that I think that a lot of people, especially Gen Z, may not know is the Bush administration used to shred classified documents all the time. I think that's something that we forgot about. So this is nothing new that Republicans are trying to hide documents that Trump's trying to hide. Something else I think of that would be really good for both regulation and, I know we're all MMT here, but providing to lack of a better term, an argument to get people to get on board with it would be a Wall Street transaction tax that Bernie talked about. Because if you can artificially slow fast trading that breaks the economy, if these traders will have to take a hit every trade they make. There's a lot of this fast trading that goes every day. That's how a lot of people get hit hard, and that's partially how the 2008 crash occurred, because there was a lot of speculation, people doing fast trades. Steve, you can correct me on that if I'm wrong. I was a little young during 2008, but I also really love the idea, and I'm going to start pushing this on friends and family I know. Steve, your idea of a bonus package tax is brilliant, and I just want to say that's one of the best new policies I've heard lately.
Yeah, thank you. So let me just say this. That Wall Street speculation tax, the Wall Street speculation tax, right? That thing right there that Bernie had put forward is a fantastic, what we call Pigovian tax. In other words, they're not looking at it as a funding mechanism. And if they say they're funding with it, they're lying, because a Pigovian tax is a sin tax. You're trying to tax away a behavior, right? So if you're funding a program based on them repeatedly doing the thing you're trying to stop them from doing, it's kind of silly, right? Because the intention of a Pigovian tax is to slow or stop entirely a behavior. So I think it's a great idea from a perspective of regulation to force a change. But I think it's very important to note that that is not a funding mechanism.
And I also think I'd like, how about we focus a little less on taxes, which I agree with Steve, do not actually give us what we need. And how about, hey, linking corporate profits to wages. So if a corporation makes X amount in profits, they got to set their minimum wage, their benefits package, et cetera, at this. That will never happen because we live in the United Corporations of America. The government is bought by the corporations. But you tell me, does it make more sense? How much more money will come in? Taxing Amazon, whatever, the 15% minimum tax, which is bullshit. They're never going to pay 15%. They got an army of lawyers. Or mandating, yes, mandates. I know people have a problem with the word. If Amazon crosses X percentage in profits, we could even get to net revenue before profits. This is how much they have to pay. And some people will say that's not capitalism, this and that. That's the fucking point. The workers are producing the labor. So when I was younger and a little bit more naive, I was, cheering Chris Matthews when he said, taxes and, why should Warren Buffett be paying the same, less than his secretary? That's all true. But at the end of the day, for the investment we need, raising the corporate tax, by the way, I'm not against it. This is not me saying don't do it. But I think it's dishonest, and it's always been dishonest from the Democrats, because that's the Republicans focus on cutting taxes and the Democrats focus on raising taxes. But as MMT will tell you, this isn't real. It's just digital. They're just digitally moving some decimal points. But more importantly, for actual revenue to come in to the government, that's less relevant because they're printing it. I would like to see it tied to how much profit companies make. Therefore, how much workers have to be paid.
Well, yeah, I'll just say this one last thing, and then I'll hand off to the next person. How the rich get away with paying so little tax is simple. They pay themselves in stock and don't own anything because it's capital gains. And then they borrow off that stock, and the loan interest they get from that stock is a lower interest rate than what they're expecting to gain in the stock market. That's why they always panic when the stock market crashes, because then they're screwed. Their whole method of making money is over. They have no more money to pay it back because they spent it all on lavish yachts and everything. And so that is why they run to the government for a bailout. I see Steve nodding his head. I'm glad that I'm dropping some economic knowledge on this chat that maybe he hasn't had the time to. But it's just proven that's a total scam. I think that practice should be banned, borrowing against your stocks. If that was banned, oh boy, we would see a lot of change.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I'll pass it off. Glad to have on the show. Appreciate the call.
Steve, or more simply put,
greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed.
Just had to throw in that sound effect. Your quick thoughts before we take the call. Next call.
Yeah, just a quick thought, and that is this, right? Every time we look at the wealthy, and in particular, we got to recognize that these guys got wealthy because of deregulation. They got wealthy because we stopped auditing, because we stopped blocking the behaviors. We stopped trust busting. We stopped doing the things that we did that kept this stuff at bay. We've literally deregulated. The problem here is this is one of ideological bipartisanship. The Democrats and the Republicans both believe this. This is part of the neoliberal framework that drives both parties. Sadly, there's a lot of people out there that won't acknowledge that, and that means we can't ever take direct action against the actual problem, which I think you did a great job. The caller made a great job of mentioning, and he's exactly right. Because of the financialization of our entire economy, these guys live and die off of that bullshit vaporware that is Wall Street, and we really do have to crack down on it. He's spot on.
Absolutely. Christian, you're up next. You got to unmute your mic. Christian, are you there? Going once, going twice. All right, come back to us. Alex, you're up. Hey there.
Everybody can hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Excellent, excellent. Before I get into my question, I just wanted to introduce myself real quick. I'm Alex Suarez out of Jacksonville, Florida. And was sorry to have missed you, Jordan, when you were in Orlando recently. I'm sure you remember me. I wrote a book that I dedicated to you a couple years ago. And also want to give my greetings to Steve. I've been on his network a couple times with Joy. It's good to be with you guys. And for those that don't know me, I'm the co-host of the Eclectic Radical Show.
Your connection's a little spotty. We're hearing like every other word. Yeah.
All right. So the last part I wanted to say is we're having a show 9:30 p.m. Eastern Eclectic Radical Show. But I just want to touch on the what happened at Mar-a-Lago. So here in Florida, I believe legally, in order to have the feds come to do a raid of that nature, the Governor DeSantis, has to be consulted. And so my question is, do you think he tipped off Trump, or do you think that he went along with it to get dirt on Trump because he sees him as a rival?
If people didn't hear it, he's saying the governor of the state has to be consulted for FBI to raid Trump's home. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't see why they'd have to consult. I mean, it's not a sovereign country; it's a state. So I don't think the FBI federally would have to consult the governor. I think there's probably people need to remember that technically, I don't know if it's like a legal doctrine or just kind of practice by the DOJ and the FBI that they try to avoid doing anything that could look political within 90 days of an election. So we're about to be within 90 days of the midterms. And Trump, I mean, has been continually doing, should I do it before? Should I do it after? Should I, kind of hinting at he's going to announce and asking his supporters, are they going to should I do it before the midterms, after, et cetera, even sometimes hinting at like, I might just do it tomorrow, So I think it has less, I don't think they had to consult with DeSantis. I think they did this now so that it would be before that kind of 90-day countdown to the midterm election where practice is not to, and that's, by the way, what Comey was crushed for too. Obviously by the right wing, but by liberals. But Comey was crushed for doing it so close to the presidential election, coming out with the Hillary thing. So yeah, I don't think, Steve. I mean, I don't see any reason why they would have had to consult Ron DeSantis.
Way out of my wheelhouse for that one, but
yeah, absolutely. Anything else, Alex?
Well, yeah, the last part I don't know if you heard, I was saying that if he was somehow consulted, in your opinions, if he tripped off Trump, or maybe along with it to get rid of him because he sees him as a potential rival.
I'm hearing like every other word. Your mic is too hot, but I believe
I put it in the chat too.
Okay.
Just in case.
Let me see in the chat here. I think that if DeSantis knew about it, I think it's very unlikely he would have tipped off Trump. He's trying to, he basically is trying to beat Trump, and I think is definitely running. So I don't see why he would tip off Trump. I don't think it would help DeSantis to do that. I think, he came out in defense of Trump because that's kind of what you have to do in the Republican Party right now over this to keep Trump's base in your good stead. But I don't think DeSantis would tip off Trump. And I think Trump probably had an idea this was going to happen. And honestly, Steve, this might be Machiavellian, but if it's the case that Trump gave over 15 boxes but kept boxes at his home, he might have done it intentionally, like hoping this would have happened. Because this, I mean, can you think of anything? He was losing steam. Some polls showed DeSantis higher. Can you think of anything to rally back the base?
I said it in my montage. They are literally needing a martyr. Donald Trump is like, I'll be your martyr. You know, he's like, I'll make America martyr again. I'm sure he's perfectly fine with it. It wouldn't shock me at all. It wouldn't shock me at all. And I mean, again, that's me giving you a hot take, which I don't tend to do very often. But the fact is that I don't see any reason whatsoever why Donald Trump wouldn't want to be raided by the FBI. It makes him look once again like he's fighting for the little guy, and the people that are hearing that siren's call are right up on it, man. This is catnip for clones. I mean, literal catnip for clones.
Absolutely. And by the way, more people could call in. The link is at the top of the super chat. All you got to do is click on the call-in link, and you'll be invited into the room, and just press the microphone to call in. There's also another element, Steve. I mean,
thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. CNN's ratings have been tanking. MSNBC's ratings have been tanking since Trump left office. The Twitter ban of Trump hasn't helped those networks, because they used to be able to react on the hour, every hour, to whatever Trump did. We didn't operate that way. It probably would have been done much better for both of our views and subscribers to just react, every hour on the hour to whatever Trump was tweeting. But this is like early Christmas to them, and a raid on Donald Trump's compound. I mean, they could get major mileage out of this. They could go on for weeks over this. Drip, drip. Obviously, Maddow and like the walls are closing in. They were saying that during Russiagate. I mean, this is a little bit more. The walls are closing in because, like, you have the visuals of the FBI raid. So cable news, whether this becomes something, a prosecution or not, they're going to be doing this for a while, which is a disservice because, again, we were already not getting coverage of what's really going on in this country, which is economic Hunger Games. The jobs report can say whatever the fuck it wants. Most of those jobs that came back are in the hospitality industry. They're low-wage jobs. They're non-living wage jobs. It doesn't factor in how many people are working multiple jobs. Doesn't factor in how many people are freelance. It's not talking about the housing crisis in the jobs report. So we have a real, smoke and mirrors here of a historic economic recovery, and things are dandy, and don't worry about inflation. It'll go down, and gas prices are going down. No, it's really bad out there. I mean, that's why I went out there, because usually when you go out there and talk to enough people, you realize, people are scavenging for change in their homes to fill the gas tank. People are pulling their kids out of Little League because they can't afford it. People are weaning themselves off of mental health medication. They can afford the medication. They can't afford the doctor. They need to refill it multiple times a year. I mean, I could go on and on. People are living in infested apartments with black mold and shit coming from the ceiling, and floors caving in, and termites. I mean, I saw it all on the road. So this is a distraction to that, which the media will take any distraction it wants. So it needs conflict. It needs sensationalism. That doesn't mean, I think Steve and I both agree we're for Trump, them coming after Trump. He's not above the law, but I don't want this to be covered 24/7, which is clearly what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there was a comment in the thread here that really I think is important, and the fact is that just about every single thing you just raised, literally everything you just raised, is economic in nature. The one thing that's not economic in nature is Donald Trump. But Donald Trump is a lightning rod for every liberal cause. And the more you invoke his name, the more those disaffected people that have checked out check back in, at least temporarily. But the fact is that, I'm grateful that I get the Vine here to talk about modern monetary theory. Such a huge audience, so many great people get to hear it. And I'm hoping that some of the things that I've said over the course of time stick, because what we're experiencing right now is a direct cause and effect of living in an old monetarist world, an old world where the Milton Friedmans and all the other fools that literally tried to bleed the patient back in the 70s with the OPEC crisis and the way they handled inflation then, those same idiots are doing it now. So the most radical, the most revolutionary thing I think any of us can do to fix where we're at that helps both Republicans and Democrats as people, fuck the politicians, regular people, Jane and Joe, six-pack, is to literally get everyone to understand the monetary system, because that's where the real lie, the real theft, the real absolute destruction to your homes, to your lives, to your jobs. The fact of the matter is that we can do so many things and we're not doing them. But yet every time Donald Trump farts or doesn't wipe his tail end well and it bleeds through his white suit, we got to hear about it. I want to talk about economics. I want people to survive. I'm terrified of climate crisis. These are the things that are baking me. And so as I think about Donald Trump, I get furious because Donald Trump even exists and we have to talk about it. But I get even more furious about the people that actually know climate crisis is real, but instead focus that attention elsewhere. And then they make us as media people cover the crap. And really, at the end of the day, if you think about it, people, those same people that we know and love, they're struggling. And there's not a single bill out there that's going to fix it. Not one bill out there that is going to fix their plight. In fact, Biden's still dicking around with the freaking student debt. I'm telling you right now, these distractions, and this is serious on one hand, but it is a distraction from the very real pain and suffering that we spend so much time on this show and our own shows and around talking about. Economic Hunger Games are what they're trying to deflect us from. They're trying to give us, bread and circuses to keep us entertained, infotainment, to drive up their ratings, like you were saying, Jordan. The fact is that we need to realize that all of these shitty actors, we've got to purge corruption, period. We need to have a full-on purge corruption movement to end it forever. But it needs to stop becoming the thing. And we need to start worrying about fixing the real problems that are impacting those individuals that are literally missing teeth, literally don't have a home, and are literally dying, have huge mountains of medical debt. These are the real problems that need to be solved, in my opinion. Otherwise, that whole cast of political characters are all jail worthy, every last one of them. And I mean, I don't mean to be hyperbolic. I'm sure there's some out there that are just feckless as can be. But the vast majority of these people have taken the trust of the American people and have put it under their shoe and squashed it into the ground. And I just hate Donald Trump, and I hate the people trying to get after him, because these sons of bitches are taking away the very lifeline that those people suffering need us to be focused on. Full bore, focused. And they keep stealing away our focus, and that pisses me off.
Enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
But I have to say, we're capitalists.
Not a joke. Not a joke.
Bing, 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 bing. They're losers. They're just losers. 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 They're losers.
Turn it off. Oh, there we go. Steve, you got time for one more caller? Or you got to go.
I could do it.
All right, Sean, you're up.
Hi. I just real quick. This is the problem I have with the modern monetary theory. Just real quick. What is the plan besides more capitalism? Because at the end of the day, we all know money is a made-up creation and system of sustainability based upon faith within this particular system. But at the end of the day, is there an actual strategy for leftism that does not support this current system? Because as far as I can see, there is not a functional way that this system that is in power is empowered besides anything besides money. We can talk about the petrodollar. We can talk about Wall Street. We can talk about the mechanism money itself from, Bill Gates to Jeff Bezos. But at the end of the day, where is the actual ability for leftists to take over a country using capitalism because to me, that is all the modern monetary theory is actually proposing, that leftists actually take over capitalism using capitalism. And to me, that's a failed system entirely.
Well, as a socialist, I agree with about 40% of what you said, the other 60, and that's not a good, that's a fail still, just so you know, in terms of our understanding of this. You're saying, hey, how can leftists use the monetary system to affect socialism? I mean, the fact is that socialism doesn't depend on the lack of capitalism. In this particular case, you're talking about the ownership. You're talking about the balance of power of who owns what and who owns the means of production and who adjudicates what the people produce and who is the one driving them and making them move, right? And that is a totally different thing than the monetary system, okay? The monetary system, which I don't even know why the petrodollar was brought up, doesn't really have anything to do with anything. But the monetary system is a creature of the state. So ultimately, if the people of the state have a nonviolent revolution, a violent revolution, whatever, it's still going to need tally sticks. Star Trek still had their little beacons that used, tallies and strokes. Everybody uses tokens. There's some way of keeping track of whether or not you got your corn for the day or whether you've got your whatever for the day. The fact of the matter is that it doesn't describe a capitalist system. Capitalism is about ownership, and as ownership of means of production in particular. And so the way you take that back, in my opinion, is why this whole thing with Donald Trump scares the shit out of me to begin with. We can't, as socialists, vote our way to what you just said. But stop blaming the monetary system for it. The monetary system is a matter of government. So if you have Bernie Sanders, and I'm not saying he's a socialist for the US, he's like, oh my God, he's radical. But for the rest of the world, Bernie is center right. Okay. You have a guy like Bernie Sanders and puts Stephanie Kelton in the Treasury, puts her in the Fed. You have an entirely different thing going on here. And so all the things that we would like to see, if we had the votes and stuff like that, unless we're willing to revolt, okay, which we don't even have enough people show up to volunteer to help do anything useful in this, activist world, unfortunately. Most people are fiercely individualistic. They want to do their thing, They'll show up at a place with a sign, but they will not organize together. And as a result of that, you don't have socialism, okay? Socialism is being crushed by capitalism because capitalism fucking organizes. They get together. They don't sit there and whine about not being able to binge watch some Netflix. They freaking show up angry as hell and ready to organize. You can't get the left to show up for anything anymore. But we got to start there.
Talking about what you're talking about is to literally take over the Fed, take over the printing press. The entire mechanism of the United States government is not democracy. It's not represented democracy. It's money. It is the ability. Everybody in this chat knows that at the end of the day, the major thing that governs your life is money. Is anybody going to eat today? You want to know that's governed by money. Do you really think that at the end of the day, the class that has
Yeah, you're breaking up.
manipulate and control everybody is just going to... Okay. Oh, sorry. I was going to say the Federal Reserve. Can you hear me better?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Here we go.
I was going to say the Federal Reserve is not owned by the American public.
Sorry, I had to do that. Just had to do it.
Go ahead.
Impulse.
No, the Federal Reserve is not voted on by the American public. In what mechanism do you think in real world that the American government, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, of the fucking printing press of the United States government over to the public? Because the major mechanism of control of the United States of America is the mechanism of forced poverty.
Okay, time out. The Federal Reserve I don't know if you listen to anybody that actually understands MMT, or if you just listen to people that don't like MMT and derive your view of what MMT is by them. But if you listen to leftists and socialists that actually understand MMT, we're going to tell you straight up that you're conflating things. All the Federal Reserve can do, the only thing the Federal Reserve can do, is control interest rates. That's what the Federal Reserve does, is control interest rates. Okay? When the federal government spends money, that is an act of fiscal policy. That is an act of Congress, Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution you're talking about. That right there is Congress, not the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve didn't have anything to do with it other than breaking out their freaking keyboard. Okay? They break out their keyboard and literally enter a deposit into the Treasury's account. That's it. We're not talking about the Federal Reserve making decisions like that. That's, as much as I despise neoliberal interest rate policy discussions, which we don't really have enough time to talk about. We should. I've talked about it countless times on this program. I would challenge you to listen to some of them. But the fact is that you're asking us to fundamentally flush all the knowledge we have and pretend like the Fed is in control, when in reality, all the Fed's doing is dealing with interest rates. You want to talk about why people are suffering? Is because the federal government has purposely chosen to reduce the deficit by taking more out in tax and spending less at the same time, which then in turn fuels all the poverty you're talking about. And the fact is that as long as capitalism is allowed to stand and has the full backing of a neoliberal president, which sadly everybody ignored when I said Biden's a fucking neoliberal, he's going to make your life a living hell. Okay. Here we have a neoliberal doing neoliberal things. When a neoliberal does neoliberal things, you get neoliberal results. Sadly, there's a lot of blue wave people out there that can't hear that. And so they never even talk about the real economy. They never ever talk about the role of fiscal policy versus the role of monetary policy. MMT says we should have a 0% interest rate. Zero. Forever. Okay, the fair value of interest is always zero. It should not be 1%, 2%, 5%. It shouldn't be any of that.
Magic? How do you get that implemented? You're saying this. Do you not think poverty is a mechanism of control of the United States government? Just real quick question.
Absolutely. It's a neoliberal policy. Yes, absolutely.
Then how do you change it? Because the only thing you're saying is like money is imagined. You're right. Do you not think that like the people in power know this? They're not going to
clearly people like you would rather distract from people like me that actually understand the motherfucking system, but sit there and try to tell everybody this stuff.
All in screaming. Let's everybody calm down a little bit.
Well, okay, whatever.
Apologies, Jordan.
That's fine. But what I don't get is, I mean, I'm not an MMT expert, but I don't know. Steve seems to agree with you on the roots of poverty. It seems like you're basically just disagreeing on the real importance of the Fed.
My position is pretty much this, that if you want to talk about like Medicare for all, okay, that is a difficult push. Okay, it's incredibly hard. But what I'm saying is that the money itself, like under God we trust on the dollar bill, is actually the more honest form of government we have today. And what I mean by that is that, are you going to eat today? That's determined by how much money you have. Are you going to sleep today in a place that has heating or has a television? That's all dependent upon the money that you have. The money itself is the mechanism of control above everything else that we live with on a daily basis.
So let me change this narrative for you real quick, because I do have to jump off here.
Hold on. Let him finish real quick. Finish.
And the point that I'm making is the idea that these people, Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell, they know this. Joe Biden knows this. The idea that by teaching or talking about this, that we're going to be able to like strong-handedly just rip the entire dollar bill from the control of Wall Street, of the banks, of Nancy Pelosi, just because of the fact we talk about MMT online, it seems to me to be a little disingenuous because of the fact they use poverty to control us.
That is the mechanism of control that they use. So I at times I find this conversation a little disingenuous because they know exactly what's going on. We're living in poverty because of the fact poverty ensures that we live under a system of control, and we're never going to get control over the printing press, which is the MT market.
All right.
That we, the public, will eventually have the control over the very printing press, and that's it. But thank you for.
I've been talking to Steve for 2 years. I've never even heard him make the argument you're talking about. But I'll let you, Steve, finish up.
Look, I have said, and my team at Real Progressives knows this internally. It infinitely knows this. Okay, the fact is that we need people to realize what is possible for real, based on the monetary system, based on the poor understanding the vast majority of vote blue sycophants have. They think worthlessly that taxes fund spending, so they accept all kinds of bad austerity as just inevitable. And rather than radicalizing people, because the fact of the matter is that most of our country isn't socialist, not in the real meaningful big M way, big C way, big S way. Most people are like, well, yeah, I'd like to have a thing. You got people out there that think, well, you took on the student debt, you should have to pay it back. That's not government talking, that's propagandized people. Until we get them to realize that this game, and I share your anger. So much of what you're saying, I agree with. It's just when you take a trip down into Ron Paul Lane that I got to go, no. Get on back over here into like Thinker's Lane. Okay, let's stay in the real here. And I had to disabuse myself of all that Ron Paul garbage, because that Ron Paul garbage has infected so many lefties, people voting for Jesse the Body Ventura that doesn't know anything about economics either. There is so much of this nonsense that is going on. And as a result, people don't feel empowered because they don't realize what's at stake. I have said on this program, we have got to get real, and we got to get real in the streets, and it's got to be sustained, and it's got to be mutual aid, and people have got to be working with unions, radical class union struggle. I mean, we've got class struggle unionism. We have got to radically do that, or we just have to eat our peas. That's the deal. There is no in between. You're not you voted your ass off to get Joe Biden in office. How does it feel, folks? How does that feel? It feels like shit. You know what I mean?
I'll make one point. I'll make one point, and I'll step down. And I do thank you, Jordan, for having me on.
Sure.
I don't understand how literally supporting American capitalism, which is your major argument right now, is the radical idea.
Nothing about that. It's a lie. It's a misrepresentation. Now you're lying. Fuck that.
Is your strategy not supporting American capitalism? Can we do MMT without American capitalism? Hey, yes or no? Is MMT possible without the state, without American capitalism?
Yes. Now, how fucking stupid do you feel now that you might? Just stop. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Point.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
All right. I'm going to step in here, because Steve's got to go make his kids dinner.
I do have to go, sadly. I would love to have kept going, though, but I do have to go.
Real quickly, Steve, tell people where they can find Real Progressives.
Yeah, please check us out at realprogressives.org. You can check out my podcast, Macro and Cheese, where we talk about anything other than American capitalism being good. And this Saturday, you'll have eco-socialist Jason Hickel discussing MMT and the things that we're talking about doing to make the world a better place as well. And you can also check me out on the Rogue Scholar, which is Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon over on Real Progress in Action. And with that, I am out of here, my friends. Thank you so much for having me, Jordan, as always.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. And I'm going to stick around for a few more callers. I'll say, just to that caller's point, I'm not an MMT expert, but I don't think Steve has ever advocated for keeping the capitalist system. I think what he's saying is within the capitalist system that we have, I'd like to get rid of the capitalist system, but within the capitalist system that we have, the government is lying to you that taxes actually fund our services. Maybe on the local level it does, but not on the federal level. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. You could have criticisms of MMT, but I don't think preaching for MMT is necessarily saying we need to keep capitalism. That's just my opinion. Holden, you're up next. And by the way, super chats are welcome. I'll read them at the end. So keep those super chats coming. You're up, Holden. You got to unmic yourself. Unmute yourself. Going once, going twice. Unmute yourself. All right, Holden. We'll come back to you. Jonathan, you're up. You got to unmute yourself. You there, Jonathan? Oh, God, I hate it. Oh, there we go.
There was just this window in the way. Sorry.
Hey there.
Well, first of all, that's fundraise are not the only thing the Fed does. They do repo rates, reverse repo rates, coupon rates, and quantitative easing and quantitative tightening. And so just if you're going to flex to know everything about something, you should know that's really a wider scope than just the interest rate that they charge for central bank reserves to Wall Street, which they doesn't pass the savings on to you anyway, because the Wall Street will still turn around and charge you 15 points on your credit card. And MMT, I think of in the same way I think of Karl Marx. I think that their descriptive powers is very, well, more or less perfect, really. But that doesn't mean they're proscriptive powers or prescriptive powers, I guess, if you're prescribing like a doctor, are right at all. They sort of have a really good analysis of a really narrow problem, but then think that their one idea is so good that it can be used to solve everything else.
Well, Steve's not here, so I can't really respond to that, as I'm not the resident MMT expert. But
well, it doesn't have to be an expert to know that, like he says, when the government writes a check, they conjure money into existence, and when you tax it, it ceases to exist. There's no coffer or vault into which it all goes and waits to be. If you go to your Social Security check, try to cash it, the banker doesn't say, "Oh, sorry, the government's out of money. We can't." It doesn't work that way.
Right. Well, to me,
that doesn't necessarily mean. When the other guy was just one more point before you switch, what the other guy was accusing you of when he says, "Oh, you still want to do capitalism," is basically that you're not denying the existence of private property. That would be about the furthest left thing you could do, and you're not even questioning the fleecing of the surplus value of labor from the worker. So that also, if you don't do either of those two things, there are people who are far left who are going to say that you're not a leftist.
Right. Well, to me, it's a lot simpler than the last caller was making it, and maybe your argument. To me, at the end of the day, our taxes have not funded the wars at Afghanistan, Iraq, the 9 countries we're bombing, us helping Saudi Arabia commit genocide in Yemen. There's not enough federal taxes to fund all that. We have the money.
Up for Vietnam too.
Right. So we have the money. I think it was Alan Greenspan at a hearing, basically explained how it works, that we just kind of move a decimal point over here and there. So we have the money. So the framing, for example, during the Democratic primary, how are we going to pay for it, is as fake as WWF wrestling was when I was growing up. And this is somebody who loved WWF wrestling.
All the people around here, like, why should I have to pay for their health?
Right.
Why
So it's all
have to pay for their student loan debt. So it's one thing to care about money printing when it goes to poor people, and then when it goes to rich people, you suddenly have nothing to say.
Exactly. So the point is,
libertarians' credit, they do have something to say.
Right. So to me, the point about MMT, without getting so in the weeds, is more so it's a lie that your taxes on the local level, absolutely, like garbage, sewer, services.
Yeah, municipal still works pretty much like household accounting does. Even state levels do, but the federal one doesn't.
Right. But on the other end, I do get your point, and I could say this about Steve too. I do think there's a danger sometimes in people who believe, this one thing is the key to everything. This one thing, whether it's MMT or anything else. We had a caller yesterday who was kind of a loose cannon and flying off the handle.
He's not wrong that it's all money is the root of every problem to the extent to which that problem is systemic. That's not wrong. But what do you do with the information that you're given? One of you is like, "Oh, we'll have interest rates be zero," and the other one's like, "Oh, we're going to end the capitalist mode of production." And
right.
But when I look at what it really means, Well, so it was somebody on Tastyworks. It was a YouTube channel that does options trading. I watched one or two of those, and one of them is just like, if it's all made up, then why do we pay taxes at all? And that's a really fair question. So basically, someone mentioned Pagovian taxes earlier, and really, that's all any of them are, or all any of them should be. And the only one that should exist is one on hoarding, which is basically a tax on wealth. So if you replace every other tax that exists, and the libertarians would love that, it'd be the price for all of them going away, every single one, is that you just have a one wealth tax.
Right.
That would increase the velocity of money, which is something that you can Google. But just in brief, it means how frequently and how easily any type of money changes hands. There's lots of different monies, lots of different currencies, but even as they exist in different sectors, dollars can sort of move more or less rapidly. But that's a good thing.
Right.
You want the flow to be high. And if in your MMT, if you're that deep in that space, then you should know you don't need to balance the budget. You need to balance the economy. You need to balance the purchasing power of the dollar, right?
Absolutely.
How you do that is, well, you have money creation and you have money destruction. And you have monetary policy and you have fiscal policy. So on the money destruction side, there's taxes. That's how fiscal dollars get destroyed. And then there's when you repay the principal on your mortgage, that's how monetary dollars get destroyed.
Right.
So what's a tax? Well, I just said you could do land at the state level and the rest of your wealth at the federal level. That's that out of the way. For creation, you do what would you Medicare for all, Green New Deal, Social Security, all the same sort of bullshit liberal spending things that you do now. And to the extent which I'm here to defend a little bit of classic liberalism. All that spending is liberal. The Green New Deal is liberalism. Medicare is liberalism. That's not socialism, really, because remember, socialism is when either all the hospital employees are government employees. I guess that's communism. Where if the hospitals were like a school and everybody worked for the government. Socialism for me is more if everybody at the hospital owns the hospital. Worker ownership. You can quibble about which one's socialism, which one's labor, but I see what the other guy was screaming about. He's like, this is all still capitalism because you're not doing any of those things.
Right. But I mean, I'm not just speaking. I'm not speaking for Steve, but I'm also saying, like, I mean, what do you want from Steve? He can't he can't abolish capitalism. So he's basically
I know, but I don't think Steve even heard what that kid was screaming about. And yes, of course he was obnoxious and a little incoherent, but I heard what he was saying.
Well, that's the problem. And we're 2 days into this, I've been on call-in before, but taking call-ins through the YouTube. I think a lot of people, because they're passionate about a specific subject, and we're all human, we get testy and pissed off and whatever. But I think they don't realize that if you're so passionate to the point that you're screaming and getting hostile, you lose the person you're trying to convince, but also you lose the audience who are only hearing you kind of, so people, as best as they can, it's fine to disagree, but you're going to turn off the person you're talking to because human nature is like, fuck you, you're screaming, and you're going to turn off the people that are trying to listen. But to his point, I mean, at the end of the day, to me, because I have a different perspective, having been on the road for 7 years, to me, the biggest problem in America is our government is bought. When you have just an inherent conflict of interest as your governmental system, you could talk MMT, you could talk capitalism, you could talk socialism, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, when you don't have representative democracy anymore, meaning the 2014 Princeton study, I think 50% of the time, the preferences of the 1% donors passed as legislation, maybe 4 or 5% of the time. The will of the people, popular will, the policies that had the most popularity do not get passed. That is not that it doesn't, like, forget MMT for a second. That is not a working system. So until you get at the root, and that didn't happen overnight, it wasn't always that way. There were Supreme Court rulings in the 1970s, and then, the loosening of restrictions on money in politics, how much corporations can give. We've always had corruption in America, but it wasn't to the level of the power of the lobbyists. They did not have, such lobbying in the 1950s, 60s. You did not have super PACs and I mean, there's a great documentary on Netflix about Roger Stone, kind of about his slime and sleaze, but it kind of takes you through the advent, forget the super PAC, but the origins of the PAC. So until you root out corruption, which is not an easy thing, because it didn't happen overnight, it is the system, and there's multiple kind of fail safes of that system. So even if you got Bernie in there, for example, as president, that doesn't mean magically we're going to get the things we need, because the system is corrupt, and the donors would go to war. And the Democratic Party, even if Bernie were president or a progressive were president, you'd basically have to do everything by executive action to get real things done, because the Democratic Party wouldn't give it, because they're married to the donors. So even if tomorrow something changed and we had a socialist system, if you still had politicians being bought off, that is to me the core problem. And until we do anything about that, and more importantly, I always say this to the audience, and I hate to say it because we have a lot of older people that watch, and I love them, and they're not all idiot baby boomers who don't get it. But until we do something about these baby boomers, I won't name names, but I talked to someone today in my life who's older, and they said, they were telling me, well, it's better than nothing, this Inflation Reduction Act. And I said, what do you mean it's better than nothing? I mean, the fucking planet's on fire and they're giving tax incentives. And the politicians, Biden, Schumer, Sinema, they gave private equity even more loopholes. And that the person in my life said, well, that's politics. It's a corrupt game. Well, that's
asset inflation. Put the gas poured on the fire. That's just going to make asset inflation, particularly asset inflation, work. Because there's like asset inflation, which is monetary policy cause. There's commodity inflation, which is fiscal policy cause.
But that mindset, like, well, that's politics. It is what it is. It's corrupt. Until we fix that, and I don't know if you can.
And Steve, who's saying in order to fix that, you got to give people an alternate vision, and that involves educating them on how this system works.
Right.
So it's like you guys as Ouroboros, I guess, a snake that feeds its own tail. Because on the one side you got, what would we do with power if we had it? And the other one is, it doesn't matter until we get it.
Right.
But what if how to get it involves knowing what you would do if you had it? Because you have to be able to. It has to be saleable.
Right. But also you have to educate people about more than modern monetary theory. That's maybe.
Well, it doesn't take an MMT aficionado to know that. So who are you trying to wrangle? People in an echo chamber, or like he's afraid to go to libertarian rabbit holes, and I get that. But not all of them are stuck in 2012. You can find somebody who knows that when Rand Paul gets up and he's complaining about $200,000 spent to send some grad students to Peru to study the mating habits of butterflies or some ridiculous thing, he's all mad about it. Like, you're talking about fiscal and not monetary policy. So he doesn't understand the difference. You know what I mean? But he's still not wrong that it's not the free market that, say, bought Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's, like all that student loan debt. And tuition would not be able to keep going up if the Fed didn't buy all of the failed student loans. And if the Fed didn't buy all the mortgages, then the land wouldn't get to keep going up. And so it's not the free market that subsidizes all the corn that grows in my state. So we have this glut of like corn-fed animals, and we throw away more food than anybody else. And like none of these are free market things. And it was Ron Paul who like draws our attention to the Fed and the arbitrary nature. Is like, I would have never gotten to MMT if it weren't for Ron Paul, who said, look at the Fed, look at money creation, look at Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. He was saying that since I can remember.
Right. Absolutely. Listen, I got to take the next caller, so I appreciate your points.
Take care.
Holden, you there? You got to unmute your mic.
Hello?
Hey there.
Jordan, how's it going?
Hey there.
Hey, you hear me?
I can. You're breaking up. You're breaking up a little. Yeah, you're breaking up pretty thick.
I was just when people are breaking up.
You have a good one.
I hear you now. I hear you now.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, hey there. All right. Sorry, I missed out on the discussion with Steve. Sounds like it got pretty spicy.
It did.
But and people have been like asking like specifics when it comes to organizing, and the one I'm most interested in, aside from post-electoral politics, is time banking.
Time banking?
Yeah.
Fill us in what that means.
So it's a organization, you could almost call it an alternate economy, where you earn one-time credit per hour, regardless of what task you've done.
All right. I'm sorry, man. You sound like artificial intelligence. You're going in and out. So
this is a call from the Matrix. No, sorry about that. That's bad radio. If you can hear me, just look up Edgar Kahn. Look up Time Bank. They're doing good work.
all right. Sean, you're up.
Hey Jordan, I was actually the first caller to talk to.
Oh, okay.
Grumble, and I just want to clarify a few points. I do understand that I probably was kind of a little loud, and I do apologize for that. I was driving, but
it's okay.
The major point that I was trying to actually make and kind of identify is actually the point that you were kind of identifying, was that our political system by its very nature is corrupted, and money is the mechanism to which the system used to corrupt politicians, from everything from landowners to I'm sorry, I'm hearing a little bit of reverb. For everything from like landowners to politicians. And the only point that I was actually trying to make was that how is it, and the real question I wanted to kind of ask him, and I'm not going to ask you it because of the fact, you're not a huge MMT guy, but it's just like, how is it that the American public has the ability to functionally take over the entire economic system, that if you do know anything about the Fed, and I hate libertarians kind of generally speaking, I'm a complete socialist, but how is it the American public is going to have any ability to take over the entire Federal Reserve or the printing press in any effectual mechanism or mean to actually affect the entire type of change that they're talking about? Because to me, I think that is more difficult than passing Medicare for all. I think that's more difficult than getting rid of student debt, because what you're talking about is literally taking away the major mechanism of control that has control over all of our lives away from those in power, and giving it to like the actual public. But I think of breaking up. I just kind of want to clarify my point, and that's it. But you have a good one, Jordan. I do appreciate you letting me kind of speak my piece, so on and so forth. I'm going to hang up and listen.
No problem.
So on and so forth.
And by the way, folks, this is day 2 of us taking calls, so I know there's like a slight reverb or friction on my end, so we're gonna work on that so we could fix it. Hopefully, if it's for the next show. I think it's just a knob that's turned, but I'm an idiot when it comes to tech. So I'm going to have to wait for Colin and Ty to figure out why there's a little echo or reverb on my end. So work with us. As far as the call-in end, there's not much I could do about the people calling in. I will make it clear, like, don't call me on your radio, have your radio off, call me on like a clear line. And obviously if it's, if the connection's bad, I'll just cut people sooner so you don't have to sit through it. And remember, super chats are welcome. We're going to read them at the end. I'll take 1 or 2 more callers. But this is day 2. So if there's any hiccups, sorry about that. But I love talking to the people. All I will say is this. I'm totally fine with people who want to call in if they disagree with me or a guest, but I don't particularly want people screaming and ranting and raving. Like, if you're calling into a show screaming, ranting, and raving, I don't say calm down. There's plenty of reasons to be angry, but like, what's the point? If you're trying to make a point and convince me, if you're trying to make a point and convince a guest, if you're trying to make a point and convince the audience, Mama said it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So I'm all for passion, but if you're going to call in and be ranting and raving, and I'm not really going to give that much of a leash. So we will cut you if you're going off the handle, unless I'm going off the handle at the same time. So I don't want to be a hypocrite. Here, Charles, you're up.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Great. Yeah, big fan.
Thank you.
Smart guy. Appreciate it. Okay, basically, I have a more encompassing topic. It's about the supply chain. I mean, basically, the supply chain is from consumption to from extraction to consumption to landfill to air pollution. What do we do when all the resources are gone? When all the land's barren? Everything we use is derived from natural resources: steel, plastic, batteries. So what do we do then when everything's? I mean, that's something that nobody talks about, and that encompasses all the stuff that you're talking about. Is not applicable. We don't have when the Earth is depleted.
Right. I will answer that, but I just want to give an update since the live stream topic today was obviously this Trump FBI raid. This just came in that Congressman Scott Perry, who was had phone calls with Trump before January 6th and right after, possibly on January 6th too, the FBI seized his cell phone today. So might be tied to the raid on Trump. But to answer your question, I mean, listen, I don't know if this is directly related, but I mean, Bill Gates is buying up all the farmland in America. I don't know if people know that. Now, if you think Bill Gates is buying up farmland, for benevolent, healthy eating and crops, I got a bridge to sell you. So, yeah, I mean, I do see what you're saying is in terms of what happens when we're basically running out of these essential resources.
I mean, eventually everything's going to be gone.
Yeah. Well, eventually, if we don't do something about the climate, we're all going to be fucked and melt. And that's
but all these proposed solutions are just going to slow things down. And eventually, say the still same result. Even though this the Build Back Better, Green New Deal, the net effect is negligible.
I think if you actually do a Green New Deal with the proper resources, which is probably closer to $15 to $20 trillion, and you have mandates, I know that word triggers folks, but we need to mandate corporations at this point to start shifting, not incentivize them, but mandating. I do think it could be effective. But the problem is what they were throwing around. I mean, even the 3.5 trillion deal was totally insufficient. So what do you think if you had your ideal scenario would be the top one or two policy prescriptions?
Well, it's not the funding that I was talking about. It's just the solutions, like switching to electric cars. I mean, basically, you're still it creates a footprint. It's just transferring it from one place to another. I mean, the electricity still has to be generated. The toxic batteries, the mining for the lithium,
right?
The concrete it takes to make the windmills, the toxic process to make the solar panels. It's negligible. I mean, basically,
I don't know if it's negligible.
The solution is I think that's to reduce consumption.
I think that's better than the carbon emissions, but it's not completely eradicating the footprint like you're saying. The other thing is, everybody's got a different view on crypto, but it is extremely bad in terms of climate. The amount of electricity that's used in cryptocurrency.
Well, the bottom line is we're still extracting stuff from the ground that's not renewable, like oil, gas, everything like plastic, all the minerals we use to create steel, aluminum. I can go on and on and on. Eventually, that stuff's going to run out.
Right.
And what do we do then? I mean, the only thing that's renewable is like wood.
Right. Yeah. It's a great point. So, all right. Thanks, Charles. I got to go to the next person.
Thanks.
Jonathan, you're up.
Hello. Can
Hey
you
there.
hear me?
I can.
I'm hearing a little bit of feedback.
Yeah, it's probably on my end. We'll fix it tomorrow. I could hear you though.
But yeah, I work with Steve at RP.
Cool.
And the last caller might be interested to know, upcoming this Saturday, Steve did an interview with Jason Hickel, who has some ideas about merging MMT and eco-socialism. And MMT is an ideal tool for eco-socialism. And I don't know, like, I'm seeing some weird stuff in the chats. Like, I don't know where people are getting these funny notions that MMT is capitalism or neoliberal, or the Fed has some sort of magical properties, or money has some sort of magic. You know, maybe tune into some back episodes of Macro and Cheese and actually learn what MMT is. Or talk to Steve in the live chats, or, go to our website and learn some things. But I don't know where these notions are coming from, but these ideas that these people have about what MMT is are not actually MMT.
Yeah, I didn't really get that. I've never heard Steve advocating for or championing capitalism. So I didn't really get that point that he was trying to make. But yeah, everybody should check it out. When is it? Saturday?
Saturday, yeah. Saturday morning is when the podcast drops, and it's fabulous. And Jason Hickel, you should check out his books too.
We're not talking about Jackson Hinkle. Jason Hinkle.
Jason Hickel. Hickel with no N.
Hickel. There we go.
He wrote The Divide, and he wrote Less is More, which is about eco-socialism and, kind of a circular economy. And as to what the last caller said, basically that's the idea that we're kind of endorsing in terms of how you deal with that problem of non-renewable resources.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Jonathan. Last caller of the day.
Thank you.
Last caller, Alex. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, I turned my fan off this time so you can hear me a little better. I just had one quick question for you, Jordan.
Yeah.
I was wondering what your personal opinion was of what capitalism is, right? Well, debating is MMT capitalist or pro-capitalist. If you could just give your basic definition of what capitalism is, I'd appreciate it.
To me, capitalism is a system of oppression that distorts exploitation and tries to reframe exploitation and corruption with a free market. There's no such thing as a free market. You can't have a free market if the economy is essentially run by for sale politicians and corporations whose sole purpose and mandate is to maximize profit. So in a nutshell, capitalism is a system of exploitation that is spun as a free market. Obviously, it's not a free market if major corporations, fuck up. I give you the banks and they're bailed out. That's not a free market. Obviously, it's not a free market when, you basically have a system of Wall Street trading that's just manipulation and corporations, wealthy people, hedge funders manipulating the market with speculation and other things. We saw this with Wall Street bets on the opposite end and the whole GameStop thing. So I don't know. That's my definition of capitalism. I think it's a bullshit free market that's not free and is basically built off the backs of workers.
Thank you, Jordan. Good work.
Thank you. All right, folks. Thank you. Let's read some super chats. We will try to work out the quirks on the audio end. It's probably coming from my soundboard, but I don't particularly know which knob it is, and I don't want to start turning knobs and create more problems. Thank you for the super chat. Cat Faye, $20. Appreciate it. Thank you, Dave, $5. Any thoughts on Varafukis, another now economy, Steve. He's gone. Sorry. But thanks for the super chat. Carrie tipped $20 on Rockfin. Thank you, Carrie. We don't really use Rockfin anymore for reasons that I've kind of told the audience before. So, you know, if you want to tip there, great. If not, feel free to leave a super chat instead. Kim Brown will be hosting tomorrow. She guest hosted last week. Definitely come back at 5 o'clock Eastern. We're going to start rotating in some other hosts. We're going to try this week to premiere a show with Tina too. So Kim's going to be live tomorrow at 5 o'clock. If you don't know Kim, go check out her channel, Burn It Down with Kim Brown. So she's been a great guest host last week, and we're going to have her again this week. And again, we're going to try and have Tina start a show this week. Hopefully we're shooting for Thursday, so we'll see if we could spring that. And of course, Steve hosts his show on Sundays. Let's Get Ready to Grumble. So try to make more of a rotation here, so it's not just my ugly voice and burdensome ugly face and burdensome voice. So Tina on hopefully weekly for her show this week in Right Wing Insanity. We got plenty on the Democrats. Let's not let the Republicans off the hook either. So we'll have Tina focusing on that, from the growing white supremacy movement to name your batshit thing coming from Republicans. And Kim Brown covers a lot of great issues, from policing to homelessness to, obviously issues that are important that aren't covered in the mainstream press that Black people are dealing with. So she kind of covers it all. And I really, really like her style. And I think she had a great show last week, so give her a chance tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern time. I'll be back Thursday, and it's great because it kind of gives me an opportunity, if I'm not live every day, to work on more investigative stuff. And I'm currently trying to outline a book, do the outline for a book that I have been procrastinating and not had time to write for a long time on the biggest government cover-up of the 21st century. That would be the Flint water cover-up. So thank you for watching. Let me also give a shout out. We got a new member earlier today. So hold on. Christopher signed up. So welcome, Christopher, as a new member. As a reminder, if you're new here, membership is how we fund our on-the-ground reporting. So thank you to all those who signed up as a member the last 2 weeks. We have gotten almost 70 new members since I went on the road my last trip, going through Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia. We got to get more. So if you're not a member yet, consider signing up. StatusCoup.com/join. You can become a member for as low as $5 a month. Also, we will have an interview probably posted tomorrow or Thursday with Richard Wolff, economist and professor. He has some thoughts on this whole historic economic recovery. I interviewed him earlier. We'll be posting it either tomorrow or Thursday. I haven't made up my mind yet. So thank you for watching. Thanks to the callers. Thank you, Colin. I'll talk to you tomorrow.